Last week it was delight. This week, not so much delight. The Stags were temporarily top of Sky Bet League 2, but then in the blink of an eye, we were back to second, as Walsall inflicted the Stags' fourth defeat of the Sky Bet League 2 campaign with a 2-1 win. Aidan Flint perhaps should have had a goal in the first half, which, judging by the photos and the videos, clearly crossed the line, causing yet more debate about referees and technology. But in truth, it was the Stags who just weren't quite good enough to get over the line and bring the points home from Walsall. Can they bounce back against the informed league team? Or will it be a fifth defeat of the season and automatic promotion fading into the distance? There's still lots more twists and turns to go, and in the blink of an eye, it can all change. This is the Mansfield Matters Podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Come and have your say on your team as we discuss it all. Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Matters Podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters, win, lose or draw. Well, the last time we were on the podcast, we were all sitting here ecstatic after watching goal after goal after goal fly in. And then come 5 o'clock on Saturday, we were all disappointed that the Stags had done the typical after the Lord Mayor show sort of thing and end up losing a game. All is not lost though, because other teams around us also slipped up, which means the Stags are still 2 points off the top of the table with a game in hand as well. Lots more football still to be played and lots more twists and turns along the way as well. Joining me to talk all things twists and turns and all things Walsall and beyond, let's say hello and good evening to three of my fellow Mansfield Matters podcast panellists or friends or whatever it is you want to call them today. The first one, let's go over to Edwin Stowe and say hello, good evening to Mr. Clive Parkin.
Hiya, Craig. Hello, everybody.
Let's cross over and hope by the miracle of technology that he realises that we're talking to him this week and there's not a 9,000 million second delay. He's on every fortnight. He's here again. It's Jim.
Hi, Craig. Evening, everybody. Hope you're okay.
I swear Danny did that gap for comic effect. And let's say hello, good evening to Mr. Alan Wilson. Have you got your voice back after all those goals the other week, Al?
Yes, thanks, Craig. Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
Always great to have you with us. And good evening, hello, and welcome to you guys at home watching the live feed or listening to the audio version as well. If you want to watch the live podcasts, remember, all you need to do is follow us on social media at MTFC Matters, and we'll tell you when we're next going to be live. And if you're watching the live version and you want to get involved, please do come and say hello as we talk all things Mansfield Town. Why? Because Mansfield matters. Let's delve straight in at the deep end then, Clive. Walsall away on Saturday afternoon. It was a cracking McDonald's before the game, and then it went a bit downhill, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to indulge in too much despondency after the game. I thought, at the end of the day, they were a better side than perhaps we'd expected them to be. They got a cracking home record. Their game plan was pretty good. They played some good football. So did we. We were denied a perfectly good goal because the officials didn't spot it go over the line. And we made far and away enough chances to have won the game. And given that the other teams around us are all finding a little bit of potholes in their form as well, I'm not at all despondent. If someone had said to me we were going to be 2 points behind the leaders with a game in hand at this point in the season, I'd have bitten their head off for it.
I think potholes, Alan Wilson, is probably the best looking at it, to be fair, and analysing it, because it is just a minor bump in the road for the Stags when you consider all things this season. And you add to the facts, like Nigel Clough said in his post-match as well, that actually Walsall have beaten a lot of the top six sides this season. They're no fools. They're probably in a false position, actually.
Yeah, I thought they, same as Clive, I thought they played rather well, to be fair, to Walsall. I think you just knew it was going to be one of them days when the Flint goal, the debacle, wasn't given. And you get, I don't know, I seem to get that feeling, even though when Quinney scored to make it 1-1, I just had that feeling that it wasn't going to be our day, although with the chances that we missed, we should have buried them, to be fair.
I think regardless of who we played on Saturday, Jim, there was always a danger of that happening, wasn't there? Because after such a high Tuesday night game, winning with the margin that we did, the 9-2 scoreline and all of that sort of stuff, it was always going to be a case of the next game that was going to come along was never going to live up to those highs.
Yeah, I think people are wary of teams that have just been on a winning run. But if anything, I think that's arguably a good time to play teams like we're playing Salford on Saturday. Because if anything, I think it's human nature, a bit of complacency creeps in. I think there's nothing more dangerous than playing a team that's a little bit wounded, that's coming off the back of a defeat or two, and they've got a point to prove. So, yeah, I'm with Clive on this one. I'm not despondent at all. If anything, it's a good thing because it keeps everybody grounded and focused and honest.
I think that's a fair point to add there, Clive, that it does keep everybody grounded. I think after such a victory that we got, against Harrogate and things like that, after that, we almost did need to sort of ground ourselves a little bit because we're not going to beat every team 9-2. We're not going to score buckets and buckets and buckets of goals. We're not going to win every game comfortably. You have to take the rough with the smooth. It comes with being a Stags fan.
It does. And to be fair, we had one goal that was a cracker that we conceded the first goal, which was a really good goal on their part. And the second goal was a mistake. We didn't defend at all well from that corner. But apart from that, we were, I think, the better of the two teams, even though they were playing well. So I think on another occasion would have taken the pants down. But Alan said it. We're not going to win all the games all this season. We're never going to do that. We still lost fewer than anybody else in this league. We've got a better goal difference than anybody else in this league. That's worth a point. And you know what a point makes, don't you? Can just reflect back on last year. So I think we take this and move on. It's as simple as that. And let me just say that Walsall hammered Morecambe yesterday, didn't they, as well? So they are very good at home.
Yeah. Jim, you nodded away to Clive's point there about that extra point making the difference at the end of the campaign.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've seen how tight the table is. Automatic could come down to that goal difference. It really could, or the title, or whichever. So, well worth it. Yeah, we need to keep building up that goal difference for me. I mean, if anything, on Saturday we gained a couple of goals on Stockport, didn't we? Because they lost 4-0. So yeah.
The magic number is the number of points between third place team and the team that would qualify for playoffs in the fourth position, because if we can keep that gap right, then that takes the pressure off.
Yeah,
I think that's
there are one or two teams now picking up form, and we just got to be aware of that.
Yeah, one of which, of course, we play on Saturday. We'll come on to that later on. A point that I want to pick up on there, Alan, is about what Clive just said about putting that gap between third place and the playoffs. Naturally, after Tuesday and Harrogate, there was a lot of people saying, and naturally there are a lot of people doing it anyway, looking at the gap between us and Stockport and thinking the title's there to be had. Of course it's there to be had, but realistically, all that Mansfield need to do is be in that top three. We don't need to concern ourselves about missing out on being top of the league and singing "We Are Top of the League" and all of that stuff. We don't need to concern ourselves on what Stockport do or what Wrexham do. We need to concern ourselves on ourselves and just staying in that top three, because it's the top three who ultimately will be in League One next season, where we want to and deserve to be.
And two things I've always said ever since I've supported Mansfield Town, being a football fan, whatever, I never like going top too early. I know it might sound daft. People might think, oh, well, I'd sooner be top, because you're there to be shot at. I'd like to keep second, third, just keep the momentum going, keep it nice and steady, and then drop in, last 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, we always said at the start of the season when we saw the fixtures, Barrow could be a really interesting game for the last match. And also, you've got MK Dons, haven't you? We've got to play them home and away, like a few other teams have. They could have a big bearing on this season. That they could.
Yeah, they certainly could. I think one thing to touch upon there, Jim, as well, is the teams around us, like Alan said there, Stockport and Wrexham. Let's take a look at those two individually. Stockport, obviously, similar to ourselves, had the heartbreak of losing the playoff final. They was rocked by that a little bit at the start of the campaign. They'll be feeling the pressure the more and more that they stay top. We're seeing it now with a little bit of their form, getting beat heavily and not very, very well. And some of their fans, again, turning a little bit toxic because of said results. And then you look at Wrexham, which is the complete opposite, who are a side who are throwing money at it. They've got these Hollywood owners. They've got documentary crews following everywhere. They've got fans across the globe desperate for the next season of This Is Wrexham or whatever it's called on Disney Plus to see another promotion and to see more scenes like that. We are in the middle of a pressure sandwich with the coolest fill-in that you could ever ask for in Nigel Clough. How's that for an analogy?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, let them talk about Wrexham and Stockport, because while they're doing that, they're not talking about us. And I think Alan's right. When you're in first spot, the only place you can look is over your shoulder. So I'd sooner be, aiming for somebody for most of it right up until near the end. But yeah, I think I feel pretty good about it, to be honest with you. We had a fantastic set of results last night go our way. If anything, I mean, it's all relative now, isn't it? Now coming to the home straight, what other teams do is just as important as what we do. So, we'd have been worse off if we got a point Saturday and everyone last night won. So, relatively speaking, if you'd have offered those results at 7:00 last night, what happened? You just said, yes, please.
Yeah, can't disagree at all. As always, if you want to have your say on your team, feel free to get involved in the live stream comment. Clive, let's go back to the game a little bit then on Saturday afternoon. There was an optimism buzzing around beforehand because naturally of Tuesday night and things like that. And to be fair, the Stags did have the chances to score a hatful of goals at Walsall. Will Swan, I think, alone had 4 chances, which he squandered. Hopefully that doesn't dent his confidence too much. But in truth, at half-time, let's park the Aidan Flint goal for a minute. That's a different debate entirely. But in truth, at half-time, the Stags should have been at least 1 goal up, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Swan had some really good opportunities. On another day, would have buried at least 2 of those. They're at the wrong end of the field from where we were stood, unfortunately. So I didn't get a very good look at them until I saw the highlight reel. But yeah, he ought to have scored at least 1 and probably 2 goals in the first half.
And you've just got to hope, Alan, that that is a little bit of a blip. He is still coming back into his form. I thought he played well generally. I know that you yourself wasn't there, but he played quite well generally. He had that pace, and he still looked like the other Will Swan. And it is just a case, isn't it, of you look at the 2 games differently, and you just think, this is what happens when your chances fall for you and when they do drop, and this is what happens when it doesn't drop, and you've just got to adapt accordingly.
Yeah, because I mean, he scored half a worldie on Tuesday night, didn't he? It was a cracking finish for his first goal, and it weren't an easy goal for his second goal either on Tuesday night. So I mean, them 2 went in. They didn't fall for him on Saturday, so I'm sure he'll just move on. Because like we said last week, we know Nichols and other people are that, chomping at the bit to replace him. And it's keeping everybody motivated, which is a really good thing. And it was nice to hear Nigel come out in his interview afterwards and said he thought he got it wrong in the end, not playing Williams instead of Barry, which I thought was, fair play on Nigel's part.
Yeah, an interesting one, that one. Obviously, Jordan Barry's a mainstay of the side this season, Jim, despite it maybe looking at times like he wasn't going to be. But I think what Alan says there and what Nigel Clough said in his post-match is also spot on. George Williams had done nothing wrong and actually was given a different option down that right-hand side.
Yeah, I like Luca Williams. I can remember the game against Notts County a couple of weeks ago when he was superb. He was like an old-school fullback, sort of front foot, aggressive, quick into the tackle. And he gave us something a bit different, I think. I'm a massive Barry fan, but he's just become the Swiss Army knife of the squad, hasn't he? And I think Williams is probably a little bit more specialist at fullback. And, of course, he's got a promotion on his CV. So that experience, he's a good age, he's 30. So they're the kind of players we're going to lean on now, I think, to get us over the line, should we do it.
Yeah, they are absolutely those type of players that we need. Darren in the comments says, as long as we get promoted. That is the main thing the club are looking for this season. And the fans, come on, you Stags, come on, you Stags, indeed. If you want to add a comment, feel free to do so. Tracy says, evening. Hope your mate Bailey is all right. Went with a little walk with Bailey, with Harry the other day. It was very nice to chew the fat on all things Stag. It was almost like Tracy got her own personal podcast. And yes, she did ask, where's Clive? Where's Alan? Where's Jim? She asked about Cam and Nathan as well. I said, I don't know who they are. And she did ask about Nick, and I said he'll be off buying a shirt somewhere. They'll be back with us soon, of course. Right, let's not ignore the elephant in the room, Clive. Let's talk a little bit about that Aidan Flint goal. Obviously, all the photos that you can see online of it, it's clearly across the line. The video clips show it's over the line as well. Was it a case of, in the blink of an eye, with the official on that side not being unsighted? Or is it a case for wider debate that at League Two level as a minimum, goal line technology should be in? Because had that goal dropped when it did, it would have changed the course of the game.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts, though, isn't it? I mean, we've had a debatable goal crossing the line. I think, those things happen every now and again. I'm not the first person in the world to defend poor refereeing. I didn't think the referee was a poor referee on Saturday. I thought he had a decent game. And I've looked at it with the devices available to me, and I can clearly see that the linesman would have had an obscured view. If the linesman was where he should have been, there were two and a half players and a post between him and the image that he was trying to interpret. And credit to the keeper, he whipped it back into play double quick. I don't think the referee could have had a decent view of it. I mean, I can't believe if he'd seen it, he wouldn't have given it. So I think you just got to put it down to normal referee mistakes and circumstances that prevail.
Simple human error. It's an interesting topic of conversation, Jim. I'm going to be honest. Most people know I don't watch football outside of watching Mansfield Town. I've got no interest in it whatsoever. I just can't. But obviously the technology in the game, I do keep abreast of that. And I know there's a lot of debate about goal line technology, VAR and stuff. And there is a question that it is ruining the game. Because for me, the simplicity of football is the fact that you are based on human error. It's the refereeing teams back in the day would not be held accountable because of all the technology that's in and around the ground. It is based on their decision as they see it, as we see it as fans, and as we see it to commentate on it as journalists and things like that as well. We're basing it on what we see within the moment. Is that the way that football should continue to be? Or, given the technology that's in the game and given some of the money that's in the game higher up, should there be more done to ensure that it does move with the times, and that the level that we're at League Two should at least have the bare basic of goal line technology?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to see VAR. But I mean, you could say goal line technology. But what I would say, having watched football for now, is all the decisions for and against over a season, they all even out. So you remember back to the Notts County game again. I think Notts County had a goal that crossed the line, which I think we got away with. If I'm honest, that looked into me. So it swings and roundabouts. It is. So there you are. That's 1-1 straight away, isn't it? So if that had gone in, that game would have been different. So now I'd leave it as it is. I think VAR, it has ruined the Premier League, and all the good and bad decisions even out, and I think it keeps the flow of the game. Just take the bad ones, as they are, and now leave it as it is.
As Ben said, comments, it's not just us, Notts County against Wrexham and us, and MK Dons against Wrexham last night, all the way over the line. Alan, where do you stand on it? Are you technology in or tradition staying as is?
Well, first of all, for the Notts County game against Mansfield, I've got quite a few friends who sit in the Quarry Lane, and they can categorically state that it did not go over the line, or the ball wasn't over the line. So I don't agree with people saying that, they think it was, because according to them, and they got a closer view than I had, that it wasn't. But I think technology could be brought in, just goal line technology. I think that would be a fair representative of League Two. I don't want, like Jim, I don't want VAR because it takes you 3 hours to sort out the decision, and then it invariably ends up the wrong decision. But goal line technology is pretty simple. It's either yes or no. Is the ball over the line or isn't it? I think that could be brought in.
Be interesting to see if it ever was at League Two level, because there does need to be some balance in that. Because I always find it fascinating that, and I think Nigel Clough referenced it as well for some games. It might have even been one of our games early this season, the Carabao Cup, whereby we play a league game and it's based on solely what the referee and the officials see in the moment, and then we play a cup game where things like VAR and replays and that replace, and it completely changes the complexity of the game and how you even approach a fixture. So there needs to be some form of balance address and based on the league system. But I guess the other point about it, Clive, as well, is the fact that it doesn't matter, because we can sit here and debate until we're blue in the face about it, but no one's going to go, oh, all right, those lads from Mansfield Matters said that Flint's goal was over the line, so we'll award Mansfield the goal there. Well, they were 1-0 up. Would Walsall have then scored? Probably not. So we'll give Mansfield the 3 point. It would just unravel a whole trail of things. As Nigel Clough always says, even after the 9-2 at home to Harrogate, what's the point of talking about it now?
Absolutely.
Next game.
Absolutely. If the referee hasn't given it, it's not a goal. End of story. And I think, I'm going to sound like an old curmudgeon here, but I'd get rid of every bit of technology and just go back to having the referee's word and accepting, as Jim has said, they're going to make mistakes, but they average out over the season. And providing the referees give their best and they're up to the standard, and we know some of them seem not to be, but then that's all you can expect. And players have to respect the fact that they make mistakes, and so do officials. Get on with it. And the other thing, as an ex-local level referee myself, I hate anything introduced at the top end of the game which can't be deployed further down the ladder. And I include the changes to the offside rule in that, because you go to your local park and try and watch the local referee interpret the offside rule now. You can't do it. And you get a reluctant linesman, usually the substitute who's having a fight talking to his girlfriend, and you try and get him to interpret the phasing of an offside situation. It's just non-starter. So I think the game itself is simple, it's pure, it should be protected against too many people fiddling around with it. And that doesn't even include the cost of these things. I think Nigel Clough alluded to it as well, is everything has cost. And it doesn't matter if you're in the Premiership, because they get 85% of all the money that's going, and the other 15% has to feed every other level. And so where's the money going to come from to put even goal line technology? You're talking 150k to put goal line technology in. It's not without cost. It's not like putting a piece of cellophane over the goal line, and if it breaks it, it's in. That would work once.
Complexity.
Listen, I'm going into an old man's rant. So I'll shut up.
Complexity of the beautiful game, you just can't beat it. Right, let's bring it back to all things Mansfield, Jim, and talk about the goals in which the Stags conceded. 2, I would say, soft goals, both originating from set plays, and both I think you can attribute to poor decision making. Of course, we're at League Two, so not every player is the best player. That we're at this level for a reason and things like that. But considering losing out on points and fine margins and things like that, what I don't want Mansfield to do now, and we can talk about this more after the break as well, is start letting complacency creep in and making poor decisions and bad mistakes. Because poor decisions, what's the saying that I used to say? Overconfidence and underestimation will be our greatest downfall. Jim?
Yeah, I think the goals that we let in, I think they were quite uncharacteristic, really, of how we've defended this season, to be fair. We're up against Jamil Matt as well, who's a very, wily operator and a player I really rate. I wish we'd have got him, to be honest. But I think it was very uncharacteristic. And it sort of relates into what we were just talking about a minute ago. I think when you're talking about the ball over the line, is don't moan about it, just be better. Take our chances, defend, do the basics right defending, and then the ball over the line thing wouldn't have been an issue. Just if we do our side of things to the optimum we can do, then these little official errors and whatnot won't be a conversation point. It would just be a consolation.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be too worried about the goals on Saturday. It was uncharacteristic. We're up against the top player, and just put it down to experience. I'll say experience, just a bad day at the office. And it's very unlike us this season.
It's all about what you learn from as well. And I don't want to, I say this tongue-in-cheek, Clive, because Nick, the president of the Hiram Boateng fan club, is not here to give his right to reply. But we saw the different side of Hiram Boateng, didn't we? We had the Hiram Boateng that we know can produce with the golden goals and the flashness and all of that on Tuesday. And then a poor decision for one of the headers for one of the corners, which led to one of the goals. League Two player for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of our time defending Hiram Boateng because he hasn't been his best friend in terms of his performances. And he hasn't, to be fair, he hasn't had enough of a chance to demonstrate it this year. And I know there's a better player in Hiram Boateng than we've witnessed. I think the hat-trick was a distortion. I don't think that really does an awful lot to conquer people's anxiety about the lad. I think he looks lazy. I'm not saying he is lazy, but he looks lazy. Languid is probably the word. And he is completely left-footed, which sometimes is a great asset and other times it's a disadvantage. But it was his mistake that cost one of the two daft goals against Harrogate. And equally, it was also Lucas Aikens being easily dispossessed that cost us a goal against Harrogate. And, I think Lucas Aikens has nothing to prove anymore. But he didn't have a particularly good game against Walsall either. No,
that's true. Boateng unlucky to be dropped against Walsall, Alan, or do you put it down to Nigel Clough's natural squad rotation at this time of the campaign?
The latter, I think, what you said about Nigel. He decided, he admitted afterwards, like we've already stated, that he made a bit of a mistake, or he thought it was a mistake, not putting Williams in, whether Tech Barry or, whoever else out. But, I was surprised when I saw the team, but I was, before the Harrogate match, to be fair. And, in Nigel we trust. It's as simple as that. Some people are going to have off days. Boateng didn't have a particularly good game. Swan missed a few chances. It's just part and parcel of the game, isn't it? But we've got other people who can come off the bench who can do a damn good job.
Yeah, you have to take the rough with the smooth in this game. It's part and parcel of being a Stags fan. Right, when we come back, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk Stephen Quinn. We're going to talk games going to be put on the old goggle box, and we'll look ahead to Saturday afternoon's clash with In-Form Salford. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters, and apparently adverts do too. You with the show for the fans, by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters Podcast. Right, obviously a bit of club news to talk about. Naturally, being in the top two and competing for promotion means that when there's no Premier League games, broadcasters like Sky go, ooh, we could put them on the telly. And that's exactly what they've done. Stags against Colchester will be on Sky as part of their commitment to show League Two football when there's no Premier League games on. And it will now kick off on the 23rd of March, and it will now kick off at 12:30. So get your tickets for that one. Let's sell out One Call Stadium, potentially not give Colchester that many tickets and get a little bit of the North Stand as well, and show the world what Mansfield are all about. Of course, the last time the Stags were on Sky earlier this season, Alan, went quite well, didn't it?
We turned up for once, didn't we? It seems to be, a funny thing when Sky come. We either don't turn up for the day or something happens, whatever. We never seem to perform to our best ability. But it was a lovely change against Notts County to see the Sky cameras there, and we actually performed to the best of our ability. We put them to the sword. And let's hope the same when Colchester come, because they're languishing near the bottom, aren't they?
Yeah.
Craig, you don't need to worry about the North Stand bursting at the seams, because Colchester won't bring many fans, and certainly with an earlier kickoff, that'll deter even more of their fans coming. So there are obviously going to be more Mansfield fans in the North Stand than visiting supporters.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's talk North Stand for a minute. Obviously, the club are doing this experiment this season, Jim, and I think they're doing it again on Saturday for the Salford game.
Yeah.
Basically, clubs who aren't expected to bring a large proportion of travelling supporters are moved across to the far side. There's a big sort of block netting barrier thing put in the middle, and then there's a block, I think blocks A and B open for Stags fans. There's been a couple of trials so far this campaign, Jim. It's not been full, and there's also been seats on both occasions dotted around the Ian Greaves and Quarry Lane end. Is it a successful trial, or is it just ticking a box, or has it not had enough shelf life to make a decision yet?
Probably that one, not enough shelf, not sort of been trialled enough yet. But I mean, it's been a bit underwhelming so far. It's not really added to the home advantage atmosphere, I would say. But yeah, I'm undecided about that one. I think someone said it before, haven't they? If we get promoted, then it will really, the ground's really going to be put under the spotlight. What we're going to do, something's going to have to be sorted out then, because the demand for tickets will always soar. But personally, I'd like to see the away fans pour in the Bishop Street. But I know this is going off on a tangent, and then we just have the whole North Stand back. But I'm not sure about this North Stand thing. I think have it as one or the other. Underwhelming so far.
I think what it needs, Clive, it needs a little bit more of a push. I don't feel that the club have pushed it as much as what they could have done, playing on the history thing and all of that sort of stuff as well. And obviously the fixtures in which we've had the North Stand thus far, I think it's just been Harrogate and Forest Green. We've not quite, and those nights have been Tuesday night games, and the weather's not quite been there. Obviously, I think if it was towards the back end of the season and the latter end of the season, and we're obviously knocking upon the door, then those tickets will naturally get snapped up. But I don't feel like there's been enough of a push on it to try and fill those seats. It almost feels a little bit half-hearted to say one thing, trying to look for a solution when really they know in truth that said solution won't happen anyway.
No, it's a bit of a non-starter in my opinion, because you can't do it for every game, because they'll want to maximise away capacity when we've got teams that bring a good following, and so they'll withdraw from the experiment when that happens. 5,000, nearly 5,200 of our regular supporters are season ticket holders, and they're not being given the chance to change the season ticket to go into the North Stand, understandably. So what you're left with is that thin level of floating fans that will come to certain games because they are enticed so to do. And I'm afraid Sutton on a Tuesday night when it's been raining all day isn't one of those times. And the attendance reflected that. So it was irrelevant that you could go in the North Stand because we didn't fill all the seats elsewhere. But we are getting perilously close to selling every seat every game. And certainly there will be that huge dilemma when we get promoted, and something has to give. The North Stand in its present guise does not allow for shared accommodation. It's a compromise they're doing at the moment. The home fans who are using blocks A and B have to gain entry via the main Ian Greaves passageways. They have to use, or they're supposed to be using, the facilities in the Ian Greaves lower stand in order that the 26 Sutton fans can avail themselves of the lavatories and the food concession without being exposed to us dirty northerners behind the stand.
It has to be said, Alan, and this is not a slander on the club at all. I praise the fact that they have battled with the SAG, the Safety Advisory Group, and it would have been a battle. It will have been a long, ongoing battle because they would have wanted to do it a couple of years ago, especially post-COVID when attendance has started to rise. These things don't happen overnight. There's always a long, drawn-out process. Case in point, the whole closing the Quarry Lane thing as well. But I think the club deep down in their hearts will know that I'm going to say what Clive said. When, not if, Mansfield get promoted to League One, there will be no side in League One with travelling supporters that will have the smaller fan base of your Suttons, your Forest Greens, your Salford to be able to do it anyway.
Well, I think when that happens, they will have to decide, whether they open the North Stand again to Stags fans, if that's a possibility, and switch it round, because there's a family stand in the Quarry Lane, isn't there? I think it all depends what happens eventually with Bishop Street. I think something will be done. I don't know when, and I don't know how. We don't know the dealings, with planning permission, etc., etc. It's a pity they just can't knock the inside out and make some sort of shell and put some barriers up and make it standing or something like that. But I'm sure that question will be asked sooner or later when we get promoted. And then, we'll see what happens. Because if it's at the start of the season and just say Mansfield have the North Stand back, the season tickets, obviously you'll be able to purchase them for the North Stand. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, I think, Craig.
Well, it's not going to happen next year. If we do, when we get promoted, it's not going to happen next year because all of these things take a long time to do.
Yeah.
Even if you take out of the equation the risk-averse ground safety people and the police, who don't like the idea of away fans and home fans ever coming into contact with one another. And by the way, I can't think of another League Two ground where away fans and home fans don't get mixed together around the outside of the stadium. But to be fair to Mansfield Town Football Club, they have as an inheritance a ground that's badly put together and doesn't have the flexibility to provide the solutions they're trying to employ. And they're in a no-win situation at the moment. I mean, there are solutions that don't involve Bishop Street. You could fill the corners in for a start. That would add probably 1,000 seats done properly, which would be for the home fans. You keep North Stand for away fans. But Jim's right. The solution in the longer term is Bishop Street.
Yeah, it has to be. But I think, like Ben has just said in the comments, Jim, we need a final solution on Bishop Street because it's a big project which takes time, and we can't wait until promotion. It will be too late. We will wait.
Already too late for next year, or even the year after, in my opinion.
I agree. That's what I was just going to say. I mean, we will wait until promotion in order to push it and to trigger it, because I think the finance for said development will probably come along with what comes with being promoted. But like Clive's just said there, Jim, if we get promoted, we're not going to open the season in August in League One and all of a sudden Bishop Street's going to be open, it's going to be a stand. It probably wouldn't be until 2026, maybe 2027, before we even get anything on that. And by which time, we could be in the Conference North.
That's it. Well, that's the spirit.
The thing is...
Just saying.
The fact is, though, we're not promoted yet. And you put yourself in John Radford's shoes, he still has to put a lot of his own money in, doesn't he, to make us break even. And I should think he can appreciate where he's coming from. Until the demand is there sustainably and regularly all the time, why should he fork out 7 figures to improve the ground when in 18 months' time it might be back down to sort of 60% capacity again, when he's already shelling out a lot of money just to keep us going? So I can appreciate fully where he's coming from. It is.
That's the risk.
I mean, he has said before.
If we don't get promoted this season, the 5,200 season ticket holders we've got this year will diminish, and it'll settle down to a figure less than what we've been running this year, which means the pressure's off in terms of the ground. So it is about forward thinking and actually leapfrog thinking, because there has to be a contingency. So if we do this, we do that. If we don't do this, we can do the other. I wouldn't want to be in their position, because whatever solution they aim at, it's going to cost money that, as you quite rightly say, is likely to come out of the owner's pocket. And even though our gates are up this year and therefore revenue should be up when we see the final finances, I think our wage bill is quite a lot higher than it would have been in previous seasons as well. So the whole thing has to square up. I don't think the club should be apologising for spending all of its money on payroll this year, because we need to get promoted. And the way to do that is to put together a really good squad. And that's what's happened. It's taken 2 or 3 years to get there. But by astute acquisitions of players who make the team viable enough to get promoted, that comes with a bill.
And as interesting as that comment is, Clive, one thing I want to put to you, Alan, is Clive's said something there which is quite an interesting take, because when we get promoted, all of that sort of stuff, when promotion happens and we go into League One, we have a dilemma on our hands, which of course is, do we spend money on developing a stand, which will take 2 to 3 years, or whatever it may be, although some people counter argue and say, like Luton, they got to stand up in a couple of months temporarily or whatever that may be, irrelevant. Do you want that, or do you want a player that's going to keep you in League One and prevent you from getting relegated, therefore allowing growth? What would you rather take? You've got one option.
Player.
On one hand, Alan Wilson, you've got Bishop Street being redeveloped, bye-bye eyesore. Or on the other hand, you've got this player who's going to keep us in League One.
I'm not I'm not going to say I'm sitting on the fence, but why can't you have both?
Because that's not what this game is.
Well, if it's coming down to that, Craig, I will answer your question, my friend.
So you should, because that's, we're not doing pedantic Alan Wilson. I don't like him.
I would sooner have the player. If he can perform on the pitch and keep us where we need to be, fair enough. But I'm sure somewhere along the line, plans will be afoot, knowing John Radford and how passionate he is about the Stags, with your Steve Imers, your Mark Burton, your Paul, the AWAS funeral directors. Everybody, somebody somewhere along the line will have something in place if and when. Yeah, that's what I can't see other than that, whatever it may be and however long it will take.
Speaking purely as a fan who faces the Bishop Street stand every home game, I'd just be happy if they demolish what's there already and don't develop it, just tidy the thing up, because it's a God-given eyesore. And thank God the cameras positions are on that side and not in the Ian Greaves side.
Yeah,
it makes us a bit of a laughing stock, doesn't it?
Aidan in the comments says, could they not just knock it down as it is, make it concrete standing with the roof? It's a simple, cheap fix that would not cost the earth. I agree to some extent, but knocking it down as it is and making it concrete standing with a roof still costs money, and I think that may well be what I would probably perceive the idea to be, which is the cheapest fix, knocking it down and making it a terrace with a little bit of seating there, a la Forest Green, and the side there, or the side that they've got at Accrington, etc. But it still costs money to do. And then the counter argument from Aidan was, would the extra revenue of the Bishop Street not pay for the player? It would, but the point is it probably would take 2 seasons for Bishop Street to get done, by which time you could do a Forest Green, couldn't you, and go up and then probably go down twice. So many counter arguments about it. We do talk about it a lot. One thing we would love is those at the club who are considering these decisions to talk about them more openly and more publicly, so people like us don't sit here speculating about it. We've got more to speculate about. Speculate.
We like that.
Take me
to
word of the day.
Can I just say though, Craig?
Speculate. Ding.
Can I just say though, Craig? I think the club have got it the right way around. You get it right on the pitch first, and everything else follows. And John Radford has said before, if and when we do get promoted, that will seriously be stepped up the Bishop Street plans. And he's never. I don't think he's a man who's not of his word.
It will.
And if we get established in League One, I'm sure that'll happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. We have to get things right on the pitch, which we have been doing, and then the off-pitch things will follow. But like on the pitch, these things do take time, which leads me to my next point in just a second. First, let's wrap up a few more of these comments. You can keep them coming in. We're here for another 10 minutes. If you want to get anything Mansfield Town related in, please do. Dave says, travelling up from Skegness on Saturday for the Salford game, will be sitting in the North Stand. Back in the day, away coaches parked on Quarry Lane, off the coach, into the ground, out of the ground, onto the coach. Simples, really. I remember those days as well. And Ben says bandwidth is narrowly affected by poor access to the facilities and other revenues. It's not just ticket sales. I can never get a pie at half-time. Well, Ben, I do feel sorry for you. Maybe go a little bit earlier, or Get one. Before you go into the ground, take a little bit of foil with you, wrap it up, keep it nice and warm. I have to say, though, that one thing they have invested in at One Call Stadium this season is the improvement of sausage rolls. They have been absolutely beautiful so far this season. Can't knock it. Right, let's move on to another talking point, Alan, which is, of course, about development and progress and things like that. Stephen Quinn, one of the longest serving players as well, at the Stags, along with Lucas Akins, scored on Saturday, of course, at Walsall. We probably didn't expect him to play as much this season. Probably didn't expect him to play as much last season either. But there he is, still ticking over like he's still a 16-year-old with bundles of energy to burn. He said in press over the last couple of days how much it warms his heart to see the development of the club. And if the players are seeing that has a benefit on the pitch as well, because it's driving them on. He knows what Nigel Clough can do. He knows what it means to develop over time, and that's refreshing to hear from a player.
Well, Quinny Astor is the man, isn't he? And it wouldn't surprise me if he changes his mind when we go up this season. It wouldn't surprise me if offered something next season, you see him again, whether it's a bit part or coach or whatever. I just love the bloke. He exudes everything about Mansfield Town. He loves it, doesn't he? And it's brilliant how he gets the fans on side. And, as soon as that final whistle's done, he's there straight over the fans, orchestrating. He's even got Mr. Garner in on it now, hasn't he? They're all doing it. Yes. It's just a cracking bloke, mate. Cracking bloke.
I think what he does, Craig, is he illustrates that age isn't really an important number anymore, because if you're fit enough and good enough, you're young enough. And he and people like Barry Bannon at Sheffield Wednesday, they just continue to play long after what you'd normally expect their sell-by date to be. And I think that's testament to modern training techniques and better player care. And players can extend their playing career in a way that in previous seasons you couldn't. Previous eras you couldn't.
The pitch there. Five parking to get a game on Saturday afternoon. Sorry, Al, go on.
I was just going to say, and I think a lot of that goes credit to Nigel Clough, because he said about, the Flynn incident and whatever, saying, he only needs to train once a week, if that's so be it, until he starts getting stronger. And I would imagine he wraps Quinning cotton wool as well, and it plays as and when. And I think it's a good thing that his I'll say it again. I'm after you now, Craig. Management skills, second to none.
Yeah, we got there in the end. Well done, Al.
Yeah.
Few comments coming in. Martin says, good to see you at the game Saturday, Craig. Had to come and say hello and praise the podcast. Really do appreciate it. Next time you do come and say hello, though, let me know who you are so I can put two and two together, because my brain's tiny and I don't recognise people. So do let me know your name, and then I'll recognise you. I'll go, oh, that's the guy that commented on the podcast the other night. And I will know who you are, and won't look at you gone out. Martin also says, Alan, can we play the mighty Quinn this Saturday, please? For him, work your magic.
I'll do my best.
Do your best. Get it on the official request as well on when the club put that out. Although Alan's Oppo, Kieran, he's have a word with him as well, because he'll get it on for you. He'll play out, won't he? Play out. Yes. So, do you want to add anything on the Quinn discussion, Jim, or do you want me to play the second best jingle that's ever been made on this podcast?
All I'll say is just people like him and Flint are going to be key now for the last 14 games. Absolutely key, and that's it really. They're going to be the ones who are going to drag us over the line, I think, in this thing.
Right, I'm going to read through the lines then and say, "Shut up, Craig. Play the jingle."
That's it.
So will they win, lose or draw? And what will be the score? It's the guessing game that brings you zero fame, but to be the best you must outguess the rest. So will they win, lose or draw? And what will be the score? In the League or Cup, you just make it up, because they're just works of fictions. It's podcast predictions. Will they win, lose or draw? Right, Salford then at home on Saturday. Reminder that there are a selection of tickets in the North Stand if you're thinking about going and thinking, I'll never get a ticket, it's always sold out. Well, there's some in the North Stand, so get yourself a ticket and go and watch the Stags and cheer them on to hopefully victory. Although, Clive, that said, victory might not be that easy. We'll come on to predictions in a minute. Salford themselves, they have had a poor season by their standards. They're always one of those teams that demand, due to their owners, success on the pitch. They sack managers for fun. They did it again over the Christmas period. Carl Robinson appointed on the 5th of January, since which, according to my research, I may well be wrong, they are unbeaten. And in the last 6 games, they're second in the form table. Stags, by comparison, are 6th, with 2 of those, the 4 defeats this season coming in the last 6 games. Despite Salford's league position, this one will not be easy. Clive?
I think, Carl Robinson's a cracking manager. I think they've done well to get him there. And I don't think it's a surprise that he's tightened the thing up a little bit and playing a much more concise game. Having said that, it's only a couple of weeks ago that another form team came to Phil Mill and got hammered 9-2. So I'm tempted to agree that it's going to be a more difficult game than we'd like it to be, but I don't think we should be fearful of it.
No, certainly not. Alan, obviously a side of that calibre when they are on a good bit of form, there is such a thing as a new manager bounce. We lost the game at Walsall. We'll come to predictions in just a minute, but we have to be mindful of the fact that Salford will want to try and climb, and you've seen historically, especially in a league as tight as League Two, where some results and momentum can get you.
Yeah, and Nigel's distilled it into the players this year that we do not, and I mean do not, lose 2 games on the bounce. So I'm expecting Mansfield to come out firing Saturday. I'm expecting an early goal, and I'm expecting a win.
Jim, they've got some good players in their ranks of Salford, and like we said, they are on a decent little bit of run of form, but likewise, Stags are where they are for a reason, and every bit of good form has to come to an end, doesn't it? So why can't it be the Stags that sends Salford back home going, should have supported Bury?
Yeah, I think Matt Smith's their key man, isn't he? So I think Flint will need to have a good game on Saturday, which I'm sure he probably will. And like Clive's favourite saying, we've got no one to fear. We just got to go out and no, we don't need to fear them and just go out and throw the kitchen sink at it. I'm expecting a bit of reaction because, like I say, once you've lost a game, when you're a good side, you want to prove a point again, don't you? So I think we'll win. I think, I'm pretty confident.
Certainly do. Right, I'm going to kick us off with podcast predictions this week. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. Bailey Cargill as man of the match. Jim, I'll come to you next.
2-1 win. Ollie Clark.
Clive.
We're going to win 7-2. And let me say straight away, there's no Nando's at stake.
That's quality, that is.
I'm done. I'm not now.
I love crime. I do.
The match, please.
Lucas Aikins.
Alan, more sense, please.
I'm going same as you, Craig. 3-1 DKD, man at match.
Excellent. And as always, if you want to play along with podcast predictions, you can do so via the link in the description. You can be mad like Clive and say a 7-2 win. Mind you, we all thought he was mad last Tuesday against Harrogate when he said we'd score 8. We ended up scoring 9.
Can I stop you there? I never said we'd score 8. I said we would win 8-0. At no point on that match were we 8-0 up.
True. 6-0, yes, not 8.
Right, I'm going to have to wrap this up because my food's come back a lot quicker than what I thought it was going to do.
No.
So we're going to have to go. Right, that's all we've got time for in tonight's Mansfield Matters podcast. Hit the end jingle, please. That one. Right, that's all we've got time for in tonight's Mansfield Matters podcast. My thanks as ever to Jim Evans, to Alan Wilson, to Clive Parkin, and to you for watching and for listening at home. We'll be back next week as we reflect on all things Walsall. No, we've done that. That was tonight. Food. I can smell food. We will reflect on all things Salford and look ahead to the upcoming fixtures. We'll talk more about our upcoming event. The link for the tickets is in the description, as is the link for podcast predictions. You must submit your guesses no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kick-off on Saturday afternoon. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Can I go and get my KFC now? Yes, I can. Goodbye! Boneless banquet for anybody wondering. Other restaurants are available. See you next week on the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Good night.